Hello, my fellow Americans. Sorry about the end of my last video. I was really getting upset, and all of this has been very disturbing. I decided I was going to use YouTube in these last days, years, months. I don't know what I've got left, but whatever the good Lord gives me, I'll take. I'm not asking for more than that. But I have to say, seeing what is happening in my country now, everybody by now has guessed I go by Granny. I'm a boomer, I guess. They say I'm the last of the boomers that were born. Some say that, some say it was I don't keep up really with all that. I just gotta tell you that seeing what's happened in the politics of my country, because I was pretty dependent on my country. I really had the ideology that I was raised with in my thinking still. So seeing YouTube putting up stuff on my feed that was, even though it was years old, I have a hard time finding new stuff. Even though that it was years old, I was blown away. The one that, of course, disturbs me the most are the ones that have to do with children. Adults acting like idiots with the cops is why the cops are the way they are. I mean, every time they try to pull someone over, someone is spouting civil liberties trying to get out of a ticket. And cops are so fed up with it, they don't even give warnings anymore like they used to. You know, I do remember a time when you got pulled over by a cop and you weren't afraid of that officer. You looked at that cop and you saw a man, a person doing his job. Yes, in my day, 90% of police officers on the street were men. And I know why. Those are like our gladiators. They have to be. They're in a wild run format that now they're just, yeah, there's always some bad cops. Always. But that doesn't make the majority of the bushel cops bad. I have met so many good cops. I'm telling you, if I was a wealthy woman, in those areas where they're saying, defund the police, I would double down on what I could give them to keep them working for us. Because whether you want to recognize it or not, they are human beings just trying to earn a paycheck, doing a really tough job. I've heard people say, you know, that have gone to be police officers, gone through the academy and worked a couple of years on the force and quit because they were tired of the politics that tied the hands of the cops and made everything they said or did an offensive crime, offense against their jobs. When I see a cop behind me, I do panic. But not that that cop is going to beat me up or even violate my civil rights. It's that he's going to give me a ticket I can't afford. I make my husband put on his seatbelt. I nag. You better be driving the speed limit. I am not paying those fines. And of course, you know, he adheres to my nagging and he drives, but I don't open my mouth unless he's speeding, and I tell him, slow down. We cannot afford the ticket. So when I see a police officer behind me, it's not fear that that officer is going to harm me physically. It's that he's going to harm me financially. Because I can't even afford to put food on the table, much less pay fines and tickets. So ease up on the cops, will you, people? And yes, I know there are a lot of problems in big cities with corrupt crimes where you have more cops, you have more corruption of cops. Just like in a small town. Small town, you have less cops, less corruption of cops. And cities today, I couldn't live in them, to be honest. Just a few years ago, we lived in Lubbock, Texas. And I used to think that Lubbock would be my home for life, you know. I wasn't born there, I wasn't raised there. My husband was. And to be with him, I had to be in Texas. So I spent 30 years there with him. And my children. And the schools were better than any of the schools my kids had been in Illinois. And less than half the problems. We had a problem with bullying in the school district. Had to do a little arguing there. But getting people to talk to each other was the biggest problem. And once the parents of the problem children came together, the problem could be solved, and was. This is how parents used to do it just 20, 30 years ago, not decades ago. Okay? And to see what the schools are now, I'm actually thinking about voting again this year so I can vote for Trump. And I do not think that he is the right man for the job. I think he's got the cojones, as they would say, for the job. But I saw how he had to fight and claw with the Congress and Senate Democrats' office. They're so much about their party line that they're nothing about the people. And like I said in my other video, I was raised as a Democrat child in a democratic society in Chicago. You can't get more democratic than Chicago was. You know, I was passing out flyers, going door to door, talking to people, and really reaching out to the community to get them to vote. Come on, vote, vote, vote. They don't do that anymore. First of all, too many kids ended up disappearing because of too many weirdos in the world. But I can't get behind a lot of this. And it's not because I'm a boomer, it's not because of the generational thing at all. It's a moral thing. I still have morals. I mean, I agree with a man should be able to love a man, and a woman should be able to love a woman. It's not alien to me. It's been all throughout my family. It's not even transgenders. I have no problems with you at all, except you don't, unless you've had the surgery, if you've gone 100% through the transition, because I do know 2 people who are now dead because they made that choice and couldn't undo it. And they were grown when they made the choice, not children. And if this young man, I pray he was probably being stalked by woke, and because he wasn't giving in, they bullied him like they bully everybody else who disagrees with them. Look, you want me to buy my fast food from somebody who's got 30 piercings in their face and rainbow colored hair and a bozo nose? I don't care. As long as none of that, the makeup, the hair, or the eyelashes, or the fingernails, are in my food. Hell, I have pulled someone's piercing, I guess it was from their nose or their lips, out of my frickin' french fries. OSHA, did you give up your duty, your responsibility? Or do you even exist? Because I don't see you taking action against this. I mean, I can't even buy McDonald's. Pulling a big, long blue hair out of my mouth because I bit into a cheeseburger is ridiculous. I have found fake nails in my friggin' nuggets. I don't know what OSHA's doing, but they're not doing anything that I can tell. All the things we had in place to protect us have been removed by Democrat policy, not even law. They're working on changing the law. That's Miss AOC, I think she goes by. She doesn't really use her name. I guess she wants to be a part of the woke people, so she's using AOC as her name. But she's a major politician, and I saw her at a Biden rally, and she looks ridiculous. The only thing she didn't do was put on all the drag queen stuff. But she's jumping around and acting like she was, I don't know, 20 or 30 years old maybe. And she's, well, and I think she's in her 40s. She looks it. But she's trying to sound like a kid. An uneducated one at that. And she's distorting law. I watched a congressional hearing where she was grilled about what crimes to punish and what crimes are prosecute and what crimes not to prosecute. And you can find that hearing on here on YouTube. That's where I saw it. And it says on there, she will not prosecute home invasions. She will not prosecute theft. She will not prosecute rape. She will not even prosecute certain kinds of murder. If the murder is done by an illegal who wants to squat in that house, it's not prosecutionable by her. She says no. This is the woman that's in the Democratic office trying to push Biden up because she thinks she's got the support of people. Yeah, she's got support from every criminal in the country. They are people. And the last thing she wants is for you to go vote. Because she knows you're going to vote Trump. Even if we don't want Trump. The only other candidate we have is Mr. Kennedy. And Mr. Kennedy can't even put out ads for himself that he's running for president. I wonder why. He can't get security in his home. He can't set up rallies because it's too dangerous for him. And I'm sorry, but in my book, even if he didn't have those challenges, I couldn't vote for him, honey. He's a Kennedy. They'll kill him quicker than snot. Listen, I may be an old lady, and my views may be outdated, but I do still have all my faculties. I have not hit that dementia block yet. Thank gosh, because otherwise I couldn't. If I don't get this out, it's going to tear me apart. My blood pressure is up, my heart is pounding, it's hurting so terribly, and all I can think of is get it out, Ange. Do not take this with you. Do not let it be the cause that you take yourself out. So I thought, it's got to go on here. But the reality of the country I live in is that Americans are criminalized for being American by our Democratic office. They're not playing to us. Hell, they don't even come to us when they want to turn our cities into sanctuary cities. That's always done under the table without a vote. Because they know the people are going to say, wait, wait a minute. Some will say, oh yeah, let them in, everybody, anybody. This is the land of immigrants. But there is a right way and a wrong way for immigrants to come into a country, in all countries, like it or not. Now, Mexico has 3 walls at their southern border and cannot keep anyone out. They're just flooding through Mexico on their way here. Mexico does not offer them any freebies. No free food, no free housing, no free anything. Here, that's all I want a president to do. That will secure our border in more ways than putting up more wall will ever do. I have lived in Texas. In fact, I've lived in the hub of trafficking from Mexico. They come through Lubbock on their way to get dispersed out to the rest of the country. Because it is the center, it is the hub. And you can go to any state from that one location. So I saw people trafficking first-handed. I saw over 12 people stuffed in the back of a small S10 pickup truck that had a camper on it. And there was more than 12 people in there. How do I know? I counted them because they were piling out, and it was all small children and women. And there was 2 Mexican men who ushered them quickly in the house. And you could hear them yelling. And you could hear these women being beaten and told to shut up. If they cried, they were going to get beat more. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I understand enough of it to know what they were saying. And where I lived was illegal heaven. My landlord put in these houses. He just wanted one American tenant so that he could ride under the cloak of our identity to bring in illegals, and he did. He brought them in. Oh my God, he brought them in regularly. When we moved out of that house, there were over 30 male men who all carried guns, gang tattoos, and I assure you, cartel affiliations. I lived through this, people. All you got to do is be poor in America to experience what illegal immigrants go through. Except, once they're here now, they're given freebies. They don't have to hide anymore like they did in Texas, except the sex traffickers and the human traffickers that are still moving slaves through America. And I hear black people who generations have gone by, and 8 generations at minimum have gone by, and not one of those people were ever a slave. Maybe had to deal with some segregation and some racism, but they were no longer slaves. And these people are demanding from taxpayers who never owned a slave, you pay us reparations. No. My ancestors died, and some were even left on those battlefields. Their families were not paid any restitution for the loss of those men. My uncles, my cousins, maybe removed generations, but they were still my relatives. And some of them are still laying on those battlefields, their bodies never retrieved. Then my mother told me, because when I heard about it, she was still alive, that black people were saying, you know, they want reparations for slavery. And my mother said, and you ought to file. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, remember Aunt Shirley had me do the DNA test for our ancestry? Yeah. She said, you may have too little to qualify, but you might want to try. And I, what are you talking about, Mom? She said, I'm 7% slave. Black American slave. Goes back into Missouri and Louisiana. And she said, yeah, one of your great-grandmothers was a slave. Whoa, I did not know that. She said, well, I'm 7%, that makes you 6%. I don't know how they're going to set that if they do, like they do for the Native Americans, have to prove that they have enough Indian to receive their money. And I know you don't know that. I mean, unless they're born on the reservation, they may not have to go through the DNA test. But if they were born off the reservation, they most definitely do. And Native Americans are waking up to the fact that they can leave the reservations at any time. They can go to other schools off the reservation and get their education, and even get discounts for it. Because of the marching that my mother and I did when I was young, it worked its way up to where black people could get grants, scholarships to go to school. In fact, because they were black, they were given special privileges to go to school if they wanted it. The opportunity was there. They had to fit a criteria with their grades, just like any other student. But in the 1970s, that was not possible. They would never have seen that if I hadn't marched with my fellow Americans who were black, Asian. We tried to prove to our government that we did not need the segregation anymore, and that a human being could not be another human being's property. My mother was still a property when we were going through those marches. So she really pushed hard to make me understand that every penny she earned on her paycheck, because she worked, went to my father. She couldn't keep that money. It was his, legally. She could sign her paycheck over to him and ask for money. She couldn't keep hers. Under law. You think slavery was over just because the Civil War happened and we abolished the laws that allowed slavery? Mm-mm. You're talking the 1918, what? I don't even remember, my mind's frizzled. And I know these dates almost by heart. 62, 63, when the war started, to 1865 or something like that, along those lines. Women were still slaves till 1970s. We were still property, and so were children. So were children. I'm telling you. I watched my mother cry when my father would not give her enough gas money so she could go to work because he wanted her to quit her job. Well, I make enough money. There ain't no reason for you to work. I want to buy extra things for the kids. They need extra things for school. I don't want to take that out of our budget money. So I want to earn some extra money. Well, he controlled every penny of that for a while. Then We fought. My father could go into restaurants my mother could not go into. And she couldn't bring me and my sister. It was for white men only. But there were black men clubs as well that didn't allow black women in. So the color of our skin didn't make up the slave. It was who owned us. And right now the Democrats act like we are owned. We are nothing more than work slaves so that they can have money to throw away at whatever their heart desires, whether it be an ideology like woke or illegal immigration, because we're screaming we don't make enough money to be able to afford our economy. And you keep raising our pay scale, but when you do that, every time you do that, the price of goods go up. Whenever I hear some young kid, I want more money, I work at McDonald's, I deserve $16 an hour, you don't know what I put up with. Yeah, we deal with you. And you are just like what you're dealing with. Except, you're not used to responsibility. The person paying you their money for their goods is kind of got the idea, but you ain't got it yet. Because you're still whining like you're a 5-year-old. And you have no idea how economics work, how money works. Why? Because your school is full of woke. It's full of ideology. It's not full of education anymore. By the time I was 15, I understood economics. In fact, I had to take a class on it in 8th grade. Basic economics. You don't. What my parents paid for one car, today, you can buy 4 tires. Not a car. You need a bank loan. What my parents paid for our house, which they did finance at a lower rate, believe it or not, because they had credit. What was it, $22,000? Back in the 78, I think it was 78, they bought that house in Bolingbrook, and $22,000. 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, laundry room, nice yard, not great big, 2-car garage, and very nice house, $22,000. And that was actually considered kind of high end, not top of the line, but definitely high end. It was not Brady Bunch kind of money, but it was definitely getting close to it. So, and for what they paid for that house, I can't even buy a car today. And with the financing, I'm looking at close to probably $100,000 by the time it's paid off. For a car that didn't cost the manufacturer more than $8,000 to make, even with today's inflation. Price gouging has become a way of life in America. And it's always been a problem ever since we really let the government have more power over our taxation. And, you know, legally they can only tax us during wartime. And you wonder why we're always in some war. Why are we in Iraq? We didn't belong there. Why are we, in Vietnam? Vietnam needed help, I'm sorry. My uncle told me so much of the suffering of the South Vietnamese and what they would go through because of the dictator of North Korea. So when you say, or North Vietnam, and well, Korea. So when you say we shouldn't have been there, yes, we should. That was totally 100% a humanitarian effort for my uncle to come home and have teenagers who didn't understand anything about the war calling him a baby killer. Now, he never killed a baby when he was there, but he lost a wife and child to friendly fire, let's put it that way. Okay, and he did have one living child that lived for about 4 minutes. Heart was on the wrong side, face was only partially developed, missing limbs, one of the lungs on the outside of the body from Agent Orange. And he never tried again to have a child. So, having this kind of history is a lot to carry in your lifetime. To know these things were happening and to see what's happening today. It's more than heartbreaking. It's soul-wrenching. I'd ask God to help us, but I don't want another war. Because my taxes are already too high. I don't want to pay for another war. I'm already paying for criminals to survive in my country better off than the homeless and poor people that really, American people, who needed our help. And that makes me a bigot? No, it doesn't. It makes me a realist. We have the highest number of homeless people in the world right now. Right now. 3.5 million of them were shipped out across our country. To add to the, 2, 3, 4 million that we already have of homeless Americans, vets. I don't know how much more God's going to make me watch. But it got its point across.